Bethel City Council for September 9th, 2024. I'd ask you to say the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second.
A motion is made and seconded to adopt our agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Okay, our first order of business is adoption of 2025 preliminary levy and budget. And we have our Deputy City Administrator and Finance Director, not Mr. Aaron Berg as it says on the sign, but Mr. Mike Jaworski.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just introduce this.
Okay.
On June 13th, the City Finance Committee met with city staff to review and discuss the 2025 budget. On July 22nd, 2024, city staff and/or contracted personnel from administration, finance, community development, fire, police, and public works departments presented their budget proposals to the entire council. Based on the inputs from the finance committee, department heads, and city councils, the preliminary budget was prepared for review tonight.
Yep.
and to consider an approval. The 2025 general fund expenditure budget is projected to increase by 3% or roughly $195,300. The expenditure increase would then result in a corresponding levy increase of 3.1% to balance the 2025 budget. There are a couple of cost drivers that we'll note here this evening. First and foremost is salary and benefits per union contracts. We're looking at a 3.5% COLA increase for 9 union and 13 non-union members and 35 paid on-call firefighters. Per the union contract increase of to $1,475 per month cafeteria contribution. It says in here a 50% increase in mayor and council salaries. We dealt with that in the work session. That will not be happening. We'll keep those the same. However, that's built into this budget. And but there is a increase in the commission members that was discussed this evening. That is also included in the budget. Overall salary and benefits are $129,000 increase over 2024. There's a law enforcement contract increase of 5% or $73,000. A city assessor contract, a 2% increase or $1,000 increase, which was actually a very good bid by the county. Moving to the county, we didn't know where that number was going to come in, but it was a very small increase. The city attorney contract is a 0% increase. Metro INET is a 4.7 or $4,000 increase. I know there was some discussion as to Metro INET and the benefit it brings and the amount of money we spend, and I think just after the whole, I forget the name of the company.
Screen?
What's that?
The blue screen? CrowdStrike.
CrowdStrike, thank you. After the
Oh.
CrowdStrike situation, they really earned their keep in trying to get everyone's systems back online, and that's kind of the benefit of economies of scale.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah, they, we were down a little bit. You look at airports and that, and I can't imagine the lawsuits that are coming out of that.
Oh, yeah.
At any rate, the audit contract, we had a $2,000 increase on that. Elections is a $17,000 decrease. We had some transfers in there to the equipment replacement fund of $16,000, street capital fund of $50,000 increase. We talked a little bit about $50,000 being kind of steps moving forward, and you really don't want to get behind on street maintenance at all because it waits for no one. So that every year we are scheduling to increase that by $50,000 a year. Hopefully inflation will come down a little bit, and of course that money doesn't get spent unless it's needed. Park capital fund, a $10,000 increase there. And currently we have a general fund unassigned balance in the general fund of 40% of next year's budget. And the city ended 2023 with a general fund balance of $4,716,292. And I don't know if there's any other points. Perhaps Mr. Jaworski would like to make some points on this, but I think you have a pretty solid budget moving forward. I think compared to other communities that are out there, it's always a comparison game of what other people are doing, obviously.
Yep.
I know the counties was staring down the barrel of a 25% increase.
Yeah,
I
Could-
know they're gonna try and reduce that.
you think?
I've lived there for 18 years, or 14 years rather, and a reduction is tough. So best of luck to them, and hopefully that's not the case. Other communities are in the 7 to 10% increase. Some are a little bit higher in some instances, and the majority of which, interesting enough, is roads. Anytime a community gets behind in roads, you're seeing double-digit levy increases to try and catch up. So keeping on top of that is
Which is a big issue for us because I think it was Tim brought to our attention back in 2022. Is East Bethel the 8th largest city geographically in Minnesota, or 7th or 6th?
It's fifth.
5th? We're a large city geographically, but I've seen 46 square miles and 48 square miles. I don't know which is accurate, but
most cities are 36.
yeah, it's large. So we have more road miles than some other places. So you're right, you have to stay on top of it or things go haywire on you quick. I have one question on this. First of all, it's extremely well laid out, like everything you do, Mike. Are we sure to get that 50K state police aid? Are we sure we're going to get that for that $50,000 to offset part of the increase in the sheriff's department?
The short answer to that is no, but historically how that has worked is essentially we pay the full price for your police contract all the way through until the last quarter when that's actually realized at the county level, and then they reduce our final quarterly payment by whatever that state aid is. Now again, historically it's always came through, but there is no guarantees when you're dealing with state funding. But again, historically that $50,000 has come in, and then they reduce our final payment accordingly, so.
Okay. I was hoping it was a for sure. Because when I first looked at this, I said, well, that's another 3% increase until you factor in the 50K, and that would be 8% on top of 14% last year for the sheriff's department. 22% increase in 2 years. That's a lot, even in inflationary times.
Right.
It wasn't anywhere near 22% inflation, that's for sure.
Right.
But anyway, it was very well laid out, and I'm sorry I wasn't coordinated with you. We will have to do better on that as far as who was given the presentation, but
No problem.
it was very well laid out.
We
there,
work
Matt.
as a team, so one or the other.
Well, apparently I didn't hold up my end of the team effort on that one. Okay. So the first item, and did you have anything further to say, Mike?
Just one more item to kind of touch on is there's 2 other levying authorities within the city. It's your EDA and your HRA.
Right.
The main point on this is that we are keeping our levies the same amount as they were in 2024. So the EDA levy is proposed to remain at that $136,200 level, so a 0% change. And then the HRA levy is proposed to remain at that same level of $77,000 for 2025, or a 0% change. With that, like you had mentioned, we have 4 resolutions before you. The first motion or the first resolution is to consider the approval of Resolution 2024-58, which sets the final date, or sets the date for the final budget and tax levy hearing.
I have a question first. The SAFER grant, that's not taken into account with
Correct.
this because we,
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, we've applied for the SAFER grant in the past. We have not met the criteria to be awarded that, although it doesn't give us a
Which
reason not to.
criteria or criterion are you referring to?
What I understand is it depends on crime rates and things of this
Oh,
nature. And
okay.
so when you're going up against cities with higher crime rates, you generally don't score very well.
Okay.
Not to say that we shouldn't continue applying for that. However, I did hear a statistic from our county attorney that Anoka County has witnessed a 40% increase in violent crime. So while that's not a great statistic, that does help in terms of applying for these type of grants. So.
And one thing to note with the SAFER grant and that fire department position is we really view it as a budget neutral item. So even if we were successful in getting the SAFER grant, we would think that it would fund that position in its entirety for the first year. Again, when it starts declining as the years go on, that's when the budget impact would actually be saw. So
Right. So as you said, the first resolution is to set the date for the levy and budget being final. And you've proposed December 9th.
correct. Yep.
Anybody have an issue with December 9th being the date?
No, that's fine.
Someone like to make a motion to pass Resolution 2024-58, setting the date at December 9th?
I'll make a
Go ahead.
resolution to approve, or motion to approve resolution 2024-58, set final levy and budget date of December 9th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard.
The next resolution before you is 2024-59. That sets the preliminary 2025 budget and levy. One thing to note on this again is that your preliminary levy cannot be increased at the time of the final levy. It can only be decreased.
And has there been any change in these numbers since the last time we saw them?
So we had our work session July 22nd, and the only thing that was changed is we had the increase to mayor and council pay in there included in this budget. Now, it sounds like the direction after tonight is to remove that, so that'll work fine going into the December meeting when we remove that from
Okay,
the
good.
budget, and then that'll be final at that
So we'll
point.
have a little bit,
We have a little bit of
yeah.
wiggle room.
Wiggle
Now, again,
room,
it's not
yeah.
much because that 50% increase didn't amount to too much as far as dollar amount, so.
We understand. Okay, so we're looking at Resolution 2024-59.
I move to, move resolution 2024-59, set the preliminary levy and budget.
Motion's made. Do we have a second? Is that Mr. Smith seconding? Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. And Resolution 2024-60.
Yep, so 2024-60, there's a little typo on my PowerPoint, but that is your resolution to set the 2025 EDA levy and budget.
And that's the Economic Development Authority.
Correct.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2024-60, setting the preliminary 2025 EDA levy and budget.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, I want to make sure that's staying the same.
Correct, that stays at the same
No
amount that was
increase?
2024, yep.
Any other discussion or questions? Not? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard.
And the final resolution then is Resolution 2024-61, setting the preliminary 2025 HRA levy and budget. And again, that is going to be at the same level as we had it in 2024, so keeping that flat for 2025.
Then I'll make a resolution to approve resolution 2024-61, setting the preliminary 2025 HRA levy and budget. Second.
Okay, motion's made to approve Resolution 2024-61. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard.
Thank
That
you.
was easy, huh?
Yep.
See, when you're all so well prepared, you guys, goes smoothly. The next item on our agenda is the public forum. And forgive me if I butcher your name, okay? Corey Jorgensen? Jorgensen?
Yeah, I'm on the list, but could I defer to my neighbor to start? on the
Sure.
same topic? Mark?
Yeah, please come up and state your name and if you're comfortable with it, your address.
Look at that, she even got a name.
Wow.
You're back up.
Hi,
I'm Mark Wagner. I live at 23125 Taylor Street,
okay,
Bethel, just south of John Anderson Memorial Park, just south of Cooper's Lake.
okay.
Corey is a neighbor who lives 2 doors down from me. Adam is a neighbor who lives across the street from me, who's also here. And then Tom lives kitty corner across the street from me.
Got the whole neighborhood here, huh?
There's a few of us. There's many more that would like to be here that were out of town that were unable to.
Sure.
Forgive me, I'm not good at speaking in
Well,
front
you're
of
doing great.
and this
so.
is the first time that I've been at a city council meeting.
Happy to have you.
Thank you, I wish I was here under better circumstances. As many people here, we all have families and children and loved ones. In our neighborhood, we have a group of people that are residing in a neighborhood that shouldn't be there. Numerous police calls. Is the Passaic County Sheriff here tonight? I was told he
It would
was-
be Anoka County.
Anoka, I'm sorry. Anoka County Sheriff here?
No, they come at the second meeting each month.
Okay,
Mr.
I was
Wagner.
told that
Huh?
he would be here.
Sorry, Mr. Wagner, can we have you speak into the microphone so it
Sorry.
picks up? No, that's fine. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
So we've, in our neighborhood, have called the police many times for a neighbor that lives in our neighborhood that is breaking the law many times. The cops seem to be doing no justice to us and they are making us feel unsafe in our neighborhood. So we felt coming here was our next step.
Can you give us a for instance of what the law breaking involves?
Drug dealing.
Oh,
Me and my dog have been attacked in my driveway while he was on a leash.
by another dog or by?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
If we go to city ordinance, for instances, they've got probably 30 cats. I've counted 18 in one sitting. They have dogs that are
Did
on
you say
leash.
cats?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you don't have to call them me, sir.
Well, it's a sign of respect.
Hey, just out of curiosity, because I don't want, you don't have to say the person's name here, but Aaron, have you talked to him? Is that something we could?
This gentleman?
Yes.
We had 3 complaints come in between Friday and today that need to be investigated. We do have 1 report from the sheriff's office that I just got late this morning, early this afternoon regarding an incident that happened at the location. I was gone on Friday. I'm back today. Had to dig out a little bit, but we will certainly be addressing this starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I just didn't want the guy's name.
I have made a request from the
public.
sheriff's office for all of the previous incidents that have been reported from that address that were referenced in the report I got today. As soon as we have all that information together, we'll move forward.
is this a new neighbor? And
No,
somebody
sir.
who moved in recently or they?
I've lived here since 2017. This gentleman has been there since the mid-90s.
Mid-90s?
Yes, sir.
And the behavior was always like this?
Before it was alcohol and now it's moved on to other things.
Oh, okay.
I could pull out the picture of his business card, but I've had multiple detectives from other counties come to my door looking for people at the residence next door to me. Isani County knows this, the sheriff's office knows this house, and they've been caught stealing mail on video. The cops have been called. The
That's a
gentleman that-
federal offense, isn't it?
Yes, sir. The gentleman that it happened to is here. It's on video. The dog incidents is on video on my Ring door camera. They have multiple tents in their backyard where people reside in. They have more cars in their yard than you pull our parts. The officers from Anoka County that were in my home told me every time they go there, they can't pinpoint any stolen property, which I find hard to believe, but they've told me they've tried. I brought groceries home at night and been told by Anoka County Sheriffs to drop my groceries and get in the house and lock my doors, and I can't unload my vehicle with my groceries. Another gentleman here has been told similar stories from the Anoka County Sheriff's Department. As a neighborhood, this neighborhood was always one that people wanted to be in. It's a great neighborhood. We love it here. That's why we live here. We feel safe here. It's a place we want to grow up and raise our children, retire here. Everybody has their own story. But now it's turning into an area where we're talking about moving and selling our homes because we don't feel safe in our community.
What are your thoughts about this, Matt, in terms of what next steps? It sounds like we should have a sit down with the, with Derek Peters, who's the liaison for the Anoka County Sheriff's Department to East Bethel, is Lieutenant Peters.
We'll see him in the morning.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, we'll discuss at the staff meeting
Okay.
level.
And you'll keep us
And,
apprised of, yeah,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
So in my complaint, I tried to come up with city council issues, the amount of animals, vehicles in the yard not being registered, people living in tents, people living in motorhomes.
Suspected drug dealing, and
Yes,
it's
sir.
a nuisance property is what you call it, right?
There's one person living in a van, there's one person living in a car. When I go and mow my lawn on Saturday morning, I get people saying things that I cannot totally hear because I'm on a mower and it's Saturday morning at 8, 9 in the morning and I'm cutting my grass and I get grief from them.
Oh, you're waking them up, huh?
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
We don't know what to do and we came here to ask you guys for help.
And-
We
and
don't
it-
know what to do.
Yeah,
You guys are our last resort.
well,
So,
Well,
Mr. Mayor,
Good thing you came in.
yeah,
That's the only way we know is if somebody comes in and says something.
And we don't know where to turn and what to do, so we're asking for help, guidance. We don't know the law like you guys do, we don't know what to do and where to go. You call the cops, I would really like to know how many calls have been to that house in the last year.
well, they got the numbers, they
Other
got-
people have asked for it and it's fallen on deaf ears.
well, that, at least the city has some leverage.
The
You know,
county
representing
the county has a
12,000 people.
public data request procedure that has to be followed in order to get access
Yeah.
to those records. And I did that today after the third complaint came in. They're not gonna have it to me overnight, however. It usually takes a couple of days, and if there are the amount of calls that were indicated on the report I saw today, it may take them a week or two. However, with the 3 complaints that came in today, we can start addressing it through city code in some form. It doesn't mean we're gonna get compliance immediately either. Sometimes, as you know, it takes years, months, longer. So we're gonna do what we can now that we've been alerted to this,
Yeah.
through the complaint process.
It's not gonna get swept under the rug.
No, sir, thank you.
No, there's no
As a
reason
whole-
you should be put in that position.
I have a young daughter who comes home, she's 14, she comes home from school, I'm at work, I don't get home for 2 hours after.
Yeah,
I
that's-
had to bring doorbell cameras because my son
Yeah.
took my dog out and there's a gentleman standing from me to you away from our front door at 10:30 at night and I have a 2.5 acre yard. My house is in the middle of the property, he was standing there just staring at my front door. So we got cameras because we don't feel safe in our neighborhood.
no.
Well, it's kinda, do you have no trespassing signs?
No, sir.
I'm just wondering, because if you did and he comes on there, then he can be,
criminal trespass.
Okay, if we've already called the cops numerous times and nothing's happened, how does that make us feel like something is going to happen?
well, because it's posted. Once your property is posted, I used to teach this with the DNR, but once your property is posted, even if they tear down the sign, it's posted for a year. And then they have something they can come back with and say, you're trespassing.
On Memorial Day, I was mowing my yard and I looked out in the middle of my front yard and there was a gentleman standing there with a push mower flipped upside down, stumbling around in a circle. And when I approached him and I asked him if he was okay, he couldn't even look at me or answer it. And I told him he needed to get off my property and go onto his. This is not a once in a life or a once in a while thing. This is a daily occurrence in our neighborhood. The cops, I
Yeah.
see them at least twice a day in our neighborhood patrolling. If they're doing it that much, how much am I not seeing it and how come it continues to happen?
Yeah,
When
No,
you
they're all-
address it with a deputy, ask him for his card. They all carry business cards, so that you know who you're talking to.
If you would like, I can give you share the card with you from the other county that has been coming to my house to ask for it. It'd take me a minute to pull it up on my phone, but I have a picture and I don't wanna waste
well,
everybody else's.
was,
If it's
was,
the-
Corey, were you gonna speak to? Corey, you're Corey who's on the planning commission, right? Okay.
Is it Tyler? Are you Tyler?
No, I'm Mark
Mark,
Wagner.
okay. Grab my card on the way out and make sure we're in touch,
Mr. Mayor,
okay?
if we can I just want to establish some expectation here. There's a process that has to be followed. And if it gets to a point of prosecution, the courts expect that process to have been followed, and it can take some time, as Aaron had indicated. So I don't want to give anyone the impression that overnight this is going to be fixed. But once the process is started, we can continue down that road until we do find some sort of solution, either through Anoka County courts or wherever it's going to end up. So hopefully it's voluntary and they agree to, comply. But in the event they don't, there's ways to ratchet it up. So
I should have started with this, and I apologize. The owner of the home has been incarcerated for probably the last 10 months, maybe longer. He is not even there. So it's squatters that are there right now.
Unfortunately, that complicates things, but we'll get to the bottom of it. If you want to
Okay.
send me the name of the deputy from my Salmon County, I'm assuming he's the drug task force, one of the drug task force
I think
officers.
it's Goodhue or,
Just send it to me. You've got my information. We'll talk.
Okay, well, thank you.
thank you guys.
Did you want to say something, Corey?
I will quickly. Corey Jorgensen, 231, 90.
Thanks for your
Taylor
service
Street.
on the planning commission,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, I'm enjoying it, actually. So, I built my retirement home there in 2016.
Lucky
Replaced
you.
a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And this house has been a disaster, and to be honest, I feel like I've kind of let my neighbors down by not doing more sooner. And when Mark come over to talk to me about coming to the meeting tonight, I was all for it. So everything he said is true, and probably worse. One night, they were trying to serve a warrant, a person ran, went around. I heard some commotion. I go out to go from my house to my shop. Sheriffs are yelling at me, "Get in your house now, get in." Well, it turned out the guy ran, they were chasing him with a dog, and so one of the sheriffs came back to talk to me, because I called to ask him to, and it turned out, not to age myself, but the guy had been a sheriff for 8 years, and I coached him in hockey for 3 years. So he explained, "We know every person in that house, we can name them one after another. But the house has significantly gone downhill in the last 3 years. And to tell you, Dan is in jail for taking a blowtorch to a sheriff. So if he's gonna do that to a sheriff, what would he do to one of us? You know?
No, I've heard tell that drugs don't improve your judgment.
Yeah, so it is as bad as he said, and I guess I just wanted to support Mark.
Yeah.
And I
No,
was like,
that's miserable.
when he wanted to talk and start doing something, I understand. And I kind of know the process from my history of, 35 years of city service before my current job, that I know this probably wasn't the first step, but we're gonna have to do something. And, I mean, there's days, I see sheriffs go past my house 5 times. And I finally got, the one that I coached, "What is going on?" "Well, we're probably trying to serve a warrant, but also we're trying to watch the neighborhood,"
Yeah.
which is great, but it still doesn't do much.
So
No, there's got to be a better way to deal with this. 'Cause
I know that
it's-
every time you or someone from your neighborhood calls in and there's nothing action by law enforcement that takes place, don't think that that's the case, because all the times you see those patrol cars, they're doing extra patrol as a result of your call,
Right.
in an attempt to hopefully deter or find something that happened.
Yeah.
So don't think that they've gone unheard. That's why you're seeing more cars.
But I will say, I did do that public request
Yes.
and got no response from the county.
Okay.
So, because
Well, Matt was a former chairman of the commissioners
Yep.
in Anoka
Yeah.
County, so maybe you'd like to speak to that.
well, things happen. I mean.
Not like it happened on
I
your
just
watch.
wanted
but
to,
it's maybe.
my plan was to figure out how many times people were there, come here and say, "Listen, they've been there 98 times," or whatever it is, and they never I never got a response of how many-
26, I can tell you.
Okay.
I repeat this, I'm sure I've nauseated people at this point, but the fundamental right you have as a property owner is the right to quiet enjoyment. And that's why there are noise ordinances, why there's garbage ordinances and all that kind of stuff,
Well,
And you should not have to put up
Yeah.
with this kind of stuff. Bob and I happen to live next to a hoarder and yard full of stuff,
yeah, that's
But
tough.
there's not what you're dealing with,
Right.
which would, then you get into public safety too.
Yeah.
This is just an annoyance,
Well,
but,
the sheriff too told me, one thing that maybe to help your conscience is, these people generally don't steal in their own neighborhood. They don't take out of their own toy box because they know they'll get kicked out then. So if that helps your
Well, the
conscience.
problem is
And
they
so
don't
maybe-
know where they are.
Maybe
a lot
that's
of them.
why I have been a little more relaxed about it, because I have spoke to Dan in
Yeah.
the 7 years I worked there or lived there, and other tenants
Yeah.
that walk by the street and stuff, but it's definitely a meth house.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
ifs, ands, or buts.
Meth or fentanyl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or both. So,
Yeah.
thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So, Aaron, can you keep, city council updated on this issue?
I'll send it to the city administrator who can do the weekly report and get the information back to you on
Yeah.
progress, for sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Derek Lind.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. My name is Derek Lind.
Yes, sir.
I'm from Ramsey, Minnesota. I'm with ACIT. ACIT, can you raise your hands? No,
Well
county election.
represented.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. We just wanted to confirm, we missed in the work session what the details were of the post-election review.
I can put it very succinctly to you. We
Sure.
directly copied Ham Lake's resolution.
So is it 1 out of 3 precincts
Yep.
then? Okay.
Yep.
On behalf of ACIT, we just wanted to say thank you. That's a very big deal to us. You're not the only city we're working with. We're working with a lot of cities. And it's not the only county either. This stuff is going on in other counties. So
And your
thank-
city, Ramsey, has
Yes.
also done it, right?
That's correct. That's correct. You're the 4th, and we think there's going to be more. So thank you very much. I'll sit down. We'll wait for the consent agenda to pass, and then we'll leave after that. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you for all your help and information you've provided to educate us.
We appreciate it.
I know I'm gonna butcher this name. Pam Kolodzik? Close enough. Okay.
My name's Pam Kolodji. I'm here with you again this
Okay.
meeting.
Yep,
I'm 485 224th Lane Northeast, East Bethel, Minnesota.
you're the election judge, right?
I am the election judge for slightly over 30 years,
Yeah.
or thereabouts.
Election judge
Could you
emeritus.
possibly
yeah.
pass this down? I'm handing down 2 copies of the 2022 election results off the State of Minnesota website, and I found the copy of the 2020 election results for the audits for the state that the state does. Wanted to make sure you guys had a copy. The last time I
Okay.
came in, I had been crunching numbers on my own. I've been looking at it. As you recall, we talked the last time about the fact that out of the audits, by the way, Matt, I think I owe you an apology. I think there were more than 4 precincts that were audited in Anoka County. That is reflected in those packages. Please feel free to look at them, share them. I think the biggest things that everybody needs to know is this data is not my data. It is from the state of Minnesota and the audits that they do. 2022, and I'm just reminding you now, we had 22 errors in that audit between the visual scan, between the scan and the manual count for the mandated state recount audit that needs to be done. Every one of those 22 were human error. Nothing was a scan that was wrong. It was not filling in a dot, putting an X, overvoting, but 22 out of 15,000, I'm not even gonna, it was 22 on that audit for those precincts. I just wanted to share with you that one more time. I think one of the things that I've heard tonight that I wanted to say, and I'll cut it short, is with the priorities that can happen that are much more important than questioning something.
The what?
The community, fighting to get their safe communities going. I really have to stress that worrying about the integrity of our system with that sort of hard data that's in your hands right now, I think is really questionable. That's all I have to say, and I want to thank you.
All right, well, we thank you too. I apologize, I can't read the last name here.
Is it Robin?
Yeah, is that what it is? I don't know.
Honestly, I just put my name on there in case I need to speak to answer any questions when we get to the rezoning portion that you guys are gonna review.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, okay.
there's nothing I need to say right now.
Okay, so I guess we're done with the public forum. Which brings us to item 6 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda. I would like to pull item H.
Okay. Anybody else pulling anything? I'll pull item 1. No, item A, and it's just item A, approve bills list. You guys got anything you're gonna pull? All right, then I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Oh, you have more?
No, I made the motion already, just needs
Okay,
a second.
I'll second it, but with as amended, or,
Yeah.
okay. So we're gonna pull item A and item H on our consent agenda, so we're voting to approve everything else. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. I just have one question on the consent agenda. I think Mike's gone, so it'll go to you, Matt. Under finance, it says SAC, which is sewer, I always think it's access charge, but it might be a accessibility charge or something. Anyway, SAC remittance, 63,700. It seemed inordinately high to me. Is that like quarterly or semi-annual or something?
Mr. Mayor and Council, these are the fees associated with Elevage for the SAC
Oh,
fees that
so
they're
it's
paying
a
us,
clump.
and it goes through.
Okay, so it's a
Payback
clump
mechanism.
of,
Yep.
okay. That was easy. With that, I move that we approve item A.
Second.
Made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None heard. Mr. Mundo, you pulled H.
Yes, I pulled that because I would like to hear from our city's expert on elections, Ms. Carrie Frost, and have her opinion weighed in on this.
Wait a minute. Do you have an item H on your consent agenda?
I didn't.
I don't.
I just wrote it in.
Screen.
Oh, it's on the screen, okay.
So we were looking at like H.
Yeah,
That was after it was edited on Friday.
oh. So that's what I get for getting ahead of the game, yeah?
Right.
Supporting post-election, okay. I'm caught up.
All right, all right. I'm Carrie Frost. I'm the administrative coordinator. I'm also the elections coordinator for the city of East Bethel. Been working on the elections since 2012, have been the election administrator since 2014. As for this resolution, I have no problems if you guys want to do this. My only reservations is, as you said, Kevin, there's a chance that the county can say no, and then it's no harm, no foul. On the off chance that the county says yes, you're cutting me off at the knees because I don't have enough election judges to fill it.
But if we also, in the one hand, approve this, and in the other hand, approve a pay increase for election judges,
Right,
might that make
I'm
your
dealing with
job-
the budget that we have for this year.
Right.
And so,
Well, we can find the money this year to
Right.
boost the election judges' pay.
But is it the money or you don't have the staff?
I don't have either one. Right now, we are a number of judges that we have that have applied. I'm still actively recruiting. I actually even got an application in today that I was very excited to get. We are very heavy to one particular party, and because I have to have party balance with anybody that's handling those ballots, I'm still scraping for judges at this point. On the consent agenda, you guys are approving the judge roster that I have for the general election.
Can you tell us which party you're heavily laden with?
We do not have enough Democratic judges.
Oh.
I
Well,
have.
Do you think, I'll go back to my question, do you think bumping the pay by $4 an hour, I mean, it's not an inconsequential increase, it's 37%.
There's a chance it could help,
It might help.
absolutely. Right now, I'm running up against scheduling. I mean, I know it's 2
It
months
might be enough
out.
to get a bunch of Republicans to say they're Democrats. Just like,
I don't want that. I want party balance.
Well, what happens if we don't get enough?
Right now, I have maybe a couple that are undeclared or unaffiliated. However, if I put those judges in, they're not allowed to handle marked ballots. So that means that any judges, any tasks on election day where they have to handle those marked ballots would automatically go to judges that are affiliated. And if there's less in the precinct that are affiliated, there's less people to do the lion's share of those tasks.
okay, let me interject something here. We have folks from ACIT here, and a lot of them are election judges. I think I know what party, though, that's the problem. But anyway, so let's say, again, I think it's 80-20 that the county doesn't approve this. I've been told that they're going to random sample 6 out of all the precincts in Anoka County, which I believe is 128, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're correct.
So it's a very small percentage. It's not enough in normal statistics. That wouldn't be a large enough sample set to tell you anything. But anyway, let's say on the off chance they do approve our request, and you can't come up with enough judges of both parties.
Then it comes to staff.
Or there's got to be another alternative too. We can rent some judges from other people.
I have 3 other staff members that are trained in the same way that I am this
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
If we have to go to staff, but then you have less of your city job that's getting done during
But
the day.
again, what if you just said, well, we can't come up with the judges, so never mind.
Luckily, I haven't had to deal with that yet.
But
So-
if that were the case,
Right.
you just say, we can't come up, we made the request, we appreciate you granting it, but we can't come up with the judges, so never mind.
Right.
Go randomly sample and find another precinct to do. That's the worst case scenario, right? Which isn't,
Like I said, I have not been in this position before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just letting you guys know what I'm up against.
No, I understand. I understand, and sometimes you just gotta take a stand because of the merit of the stand itself, whatever the consequences are.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have a problem doing it.
And I don't
I've
think this
looked
is
through
like a
ACIT's
hill to die
information.
on or something, but I
Yeah.
think it's,
I've looked through ACIT's information, and most of, a lot of the stuff I do not disagree with.
Yeah.
But,
It's
like I said,
it's the
if
execution
it's this
of
year,
it.
it's the actual feasibility of being able to make it happen.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm desperate.
All right, well, we've heard your concerns.
So,
Thank you. We have ultimate trust in you, Carrie. So we believe what you're saying is to be absolutely valid.
Well,
Any further input on the matter of item H? If not,
Well, I don't want to put a drain on the judges.
Yeah.
I guess that's my one concern.
what do you mean?
Because it's a full day already, and then it takes
It
more
doesn't
time.
happen on the same day, it happens 9 days later, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not the same day, they're not working a 36-hour day or something. Yeah. Please.
For your record, my name's Robert Kirchner. I live in Coon Rapids.
Oh, hi, Bob.
And I've been the prime mover on how to calculate the supply and demand for this activity. And the calculator that we gave your city is something that can be adjusted to balance supply and demand. And so, for example, I think there's 3 points on the demand side. Number one, it's not same day. It's, some days later. So it's a
Yeah.
whole different event.
Yeah.
So the same judges that work on the election day can work on this particular day to do hand counting. Number two, you can do a subset of your totals, so you don't need to do 3 precincts, you can do 1.
Right.
And you can also scope the number of offices that you will count. So those 3 factors really make it possible for you to scope this down to a capacity that you have. So there's really no reason to say you can't do this.
If I
It's a
could
matter of
inter-
capacity.
If I could interject, our resolution calls for sampling 1 of the 3 precincts of East Bethel. But I was thinking earlier today, and I just didn't want to complicate it, but I thought, what about if there was an additional condition? We already know it's only for elections in which they're contested. Okay,
Yes.
you don't count if there's no opposition. But what if it was, you limit it further and say, there has to be, you do a hand count in the case of elections where the first and the second is at least 10% or 20% apart. So it's such an overwhelming win, you don't need to count it, that kind of thing. See what I'm
Yes,
saying? Is that?
Yes, I do, and I think
Yeah.
that's a very creative way to approach this,
Well,
because the
it's my wife's idea, actually.
the tabulator results will actually have been canvassed and approved
Yeah,
by the canvass board before the hand count verification takes place.
yeah,
So in your resolution, you could actually stipulate a margin of difference that triggers what you hand count.
yeah.
So no other city has actually approached it that way, but that is an actual interesting way to manage the supply and demand balance for this.
Well, if that's what it comes out, then that resolution has to be amended, correct?
It
Yeah,
can
we
be
can amend
amended
it
right
on
here
the
and
fly right now, though.
And is this on a one-time deal, or is this,
No, this is a
Resolution.
one-time, just for this election, just
well,
right
I'm
now.
asking.
Yeah. So how would we word it? And only elections in which the first and second place are separated by less than 10% or 20%? You're the experts, I'm asking you. All I did was listen to my
I
wife.
think you have full discretion on your margin that you'd like to put in there.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but how would you phrase it?
I think, well, in addition to the 1 precinct, competitive offices, excluding, I think you were
Judges.
excluding judges.
Excluding
Mostly
judges.
those aren't competitive.
And only contested elections?
Yes, only
Yeah.
contested offices that are within a margin of X percent, 10% or whatever. I think your ballot is already known, what's going to be on this ballot. So you can already make an estimate of which offices are competitive or which are not. But adding that additional margin, I think gives you a way to scope it down. If there's an obvious result that's so divergent that you don't care about checking it, then you have that option to leave that out.
Okay. So I'm going to move that we amend the resolution in support of a post-election review to add a criterion, a third criterion down below, that it would only be performed on elections in which the difference between the first and second party on the ballot is less than 20%. How about that? Less than 20%.
Could I speak for you for a second? I just want to remind council of something. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, so, and why don't I just pass, you can read what I'm reading here. This is, again, straight
No,
out,
that's,
state up.
just summarize for us.
okay,
We need
okay.
to move along.
So, how election recounts work in the state of Minnesota.
Well,
Election
what
recounts-
is the point of this?
I just want to make you aware of how the recounts take place in statistically when they are less than 1/2%, it's an automatic recount.
Right,
Because you're
right,
talking
right.
about
That's-
thresholds
That's
here,
state
right?
statute, yeah.
And a discretionary recount of the results of an election for a federal office, state office, legislative, or judicial office can occur at the candidate's expense if the difference is, excuse me, I ran out of my page. If the difference is the number of votes cast for the apparent winning candidate and any other candidate is greater than the threshold for a publicly funded one. So if it's over 0.5%, the candidate can ask for a recount. So I'm not quite sure where this 20% threshold falls as far as being logical. A candidate can request that recount.
Well, you would
That's it.
probably request a recount if it was 0.75%.
At the candidate's
But
expense.
if it was
But it doesn't fall
20%,
to
you
the
wouldn't want
city
to, if it was 20% between one party and the other, you probably would say, I'm not going to spend the money to, it's such an overwhelming
And I think that
lead,
that's,
you know.
that's something that the city needs to be concerned about, because where are you going to spend your money for recounts?
Well, that's
for an
why, that's
election?
why I'm adding the condition.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. Okay, so we can vote on what I've proposed, what we have here, plus the amendment I proposed, and then we can type it up and all that, but first is to get the approval for it, or reject it, whichever. So since I've driven this thing to some degree, well, I and my wife now, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2024-53, resolution in support of a post-election review, with the one condition that I just delineated added to it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So the record can show that it was 4-1, Mr. Mundell being the nay vote. Or voting aye in the negative, however you want to say it. All right. Thank you. So that completes the tortuous, thank you for being here, guys. Tortuous consent agenda.
Oh my God, place emptied out.
Yeah. Well, you guys travel in a herd, don't you? All right, that moves us to agenda item 7.0, which is new business and a planning commission. We've got 4 items to deal with that the planning commission has forwarded to us. Item 1 is a variance at 4141 226th Avenue. Mr. Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a variance request to the general regulations to place a detached, easy for me to say, detached accessory structure nearer the front lot line than the primary structure at 4141 226th Lane Northeast. This property is located in the Oak Glen Estates and in a rural residential zoning district. The applicant's property is over 2 acres in size, however, 1 acre of the rear yard is wetlands, lowlands, and a platted drainage and utility easement. The property owner is requesting a variance for the placement of the detached structure closer to the street than the primary structure due to the drainage and utility easement restrictions and septic placement on the property. Section 14-4 permits a 2-acre parcel and accessory building in the size of 1,800 square feet. Section 14.2F states that no accessory building or detached private garage shall be located nearer the front lot line than the principal building, with the exception of lots bigger than 3 acres with the principal building more than 200 feet from the front lot line. This property does not meet that requirement. Section 66.255 requires that a minimum building setback from a delineated wetland edge of 25 feet be recognized. And the septic tank and mound are located east of the attached garage, while the well is located on the west side of this residence. Section 74-44 requires a minimum building setback from a septic tank to be 10 feet and a septic mound to be 20 feet. However, city code does permit the building official to reduce the setback from a detached accessory building or garages with no basements by 50% or 10 feet. Additionally, since this variance request is for the placement in the front of a primary residence, according to section 42(7)(b)(2), the front yard setback distance for a structural placement in this neighborhood is 40 feet. Therefore, if a variance for placement is approved in front of the front line of the house, the detached accessory structure would still need to meet the 40-foot front yard setback. The conditions of a variance require the consideration of a three-factor practical test of difficulty. The first one is reasonableness, which means the landowner would use the property in a practical way but cannot do so under the rules of your ordinance. In this case, an accessory structure is permitted as an accessory use in the rural residential single-family zoning district. The septic system is located on the west side of the property. City general building design standards only require that single-family dwellings include at minimum a 24 by 24 garage, so accessory buildings are not a guarantee. Section 14 of detached accessory structures, the purpose is to have standards to establish and preserve the character of the principal structure, promoting building compatibility, and provide for a minimal adverse impact to the surrounding properties through the implementation of height, size, location, and architectural regulations. The second factor is that the landowner's problem is due to circumstances unique to the property and not caused by the landowner himself. In this case, the property is over 2 acres in size. However, 1 acre of the rear yard is a drainage utility easement or lowlands or wetlands. Wetland setbacks, as defined in city code, require 25 feet from the delineated edge of the wetland, and the placement of a septic system is prohibitive to the placement of a accessory structure within the setback rules of our ordinance. The third factor is that the variance would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. This factor is used to consider whether the resulting structure would be out of scale, out of place, or otherwise inconsistent with the surroundings. In this case, the minimum structural front yard setback in this neighborhood is 40 feet from the right-of-way. There are 8 parcels in the Oak Glen Estates. 1 parcel is vacant. 2 of them have detached accessory buildings. 2 of the parcels have primary residences placed at the minimum setback of 40 feet. 5 parcels have the primary residence placed deeper in the lots. None of the parcels have detached accessory buildings closer to the front lot line than the primary residence. On August 27th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing where there was no public comment. After a review of the application material and a discussion, the Planning Commission by a 5-0 vote recommended approval of the variance request for the placement of a detached accessory structure closer to the street than the primary structure. City staff, subsequent to the meeting, received 2 emails from neighboring properties after the Planning Commission meeting. The neighbors were unable to make the meeting, however, were objectionable to the placement of the detached accessory structure in front of the house. Those emails were included for your review. City Council should review the request and the Planning Commission's recommendation and approve, deny, or modify conditions of a variance request for the placement of a detached accessory structure closer to the front lot line than the primary structure as presented in Resolution 2024-62.
Where exactly on the property is it gonna go?
Yeah, I will bring up a proposal from the homeowner. The garage is scheduled or proposed to be placed right here. They are allowed on this property by size an 1,800 square foot detached accessory building. By zoning code, this is just under 900 square feet what they've proposed. As you can see, this is the house, the current structure. The current septic drain field is here with the tanks off to the side. The well is located on this side of the house. Therefore, placing the detached accessory structure behind the front line of the house may be very difficult in this scenario because the rear yard, the west side of the rear yard is a defined wetland.
Wow.
Most of the rear yard is drainage and utility easement as platted, and there's also a 15-foot drainage and utility easement platted up the west side of the property, prohibiting them from placing the detached building on the west side of the front of the house or behind the front line of the house on the west side due to setback requirements.
That last slide looked like the garage was gonna be over the
Secondary,
drain field or leach
yeah,
field.
so any house built after 1995 requires multiple septic sites, a usable septic site and a secondary septic site.
Right.
Now, granted, setback requirements for septic drain fields are 20 feet. However, if it is a slab on grade, it can be reduced to 10 feet. So they have a current placement of over 24 feet between the current drain field, and if that were to fail, they could potentially place the drain field here or closer and relocate the tanks. There are other options. We just require that any new home application provide 2 usable septic sites when they apply for a building permit.
So what it's encroaching is the secondary site?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, that's what wasn't clear.
The expense would be on them if they needed to find a secondary site at this point, if they're gonna put the garage in the location of the secondary site, but looking at the drawings, the elevations, I think that there's other locations on their property for a secondary site if they needed one. It's just gonna be more expensive.
What's the driveway gonna be, asphalt?
The existing driveway is asphalt, and the intent is to make a right-hand turn off of the driveway into the garage door and not ask for a second driveway.
Just out of curiosity, you haven't built anything in a long time, but just standing back and looking at it, it seems like it would make more sense to expand the existing garage.
That information was presented.
Little depth, a little width, and there you go.
As you know as well as I do, a post-frame construction building is significantly cheaper than pouring footings for a garage and adding an addition onto an existing structure. They initially came in with the idea to do a stick-built building to match the house.
Yeah.
And then later on changed the perspective to the cheaper cost of a post-frame construction building. However, as you read in the neighbors' complaints in the email.
When you say post-frame, you mean?
Post-frame like a pole barn?
Like a pole barn,
Yes.
yeah.
The neighborhood complaints that were lodged post-planning commission meeting had to do with the architectural standards of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
There are no other buildings in front of primary residences. I think the concern is that it's gonna look like a pole barn in their neighborhood,
Yeah.
and they don't want that to happen. So in your packet, I included that you could approve a variance with conditions, and one of the conditions could be that the exterior of the construction of the building needs to match the primary residence so that it wouldn't look like a pole barn. However, that's going to increase the expense to the applicant. Again, there are only 8 properties in here. 7 of them are occupied. 2 of them have accessory buildings that are located behind the front line of the primary structure. The immediate property to the east was set 40 feet from the right-of-way, and the property immediately across the street is set 40 feet from the right-of-way. The rest of the buildings are set deeper on the lots than that.
And this would be 40 feet, right?
This would have to be 40 feet, because
Yeah.
they did not request a variance for a front yard setback.
Okay, so what you just said sounds like the best solution, because the planning commission recommended it 5-0 for approval. So
Correct.
why don't we just attach the condition that it has to, I don't know what the wording, you would know the wording better than I, but substantially match the existing house.
We could, you can do that in any form you'd like.
I mean, that,
Can be added as
because everybody says pole barn, they always think it's sheet metal on the outside. It
Correct.
doesn't have to be,
That's why I've migrated to using the term post-frame
Yeah, yeah,
construction,
no,
because it's got the interior of
Yeah, you're
a
right,
pole
it's a
barn.
better-
However, the
it's-
exterior
it's more
materials can be
descriptive, yeah.
completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't you guys think that's probably that would appease the concerns of the residents who are concerned it's gonna look like a pole barn?
Well, I guess what I got out of the people that are against it is they don't want a building in front of their house, and that's gonna be the only one in the neighborhood.
But they really do, they are really limited by the easements and the wetlands, they're condition number 1 or 2, whatever it is that, of the tests that they
Right,
really,
it's practically impossible for them to put
Yeah.
something in the confines of our ordinance. It
Yeah.
is practically impossible.
yeah.
with the exception of
Hopefully they
an
got a
addition.
good deal on the lot, so.
All right, any of them here?
I don't see the applicant. I do not.
Aaron, are there different architectural standards for stick-built versus pole building?
We require the same number of architectural features. We don't necessarily require a certain material.
But what would, where I'm going with this is, with the stick-built, are they wrote in a way that they have to comply with matching the house?
That's what I would recommend.
But
No, we do not have that. It is, I mean, it should match as close as possible, but if we think about it, if this house was built in the late 90s, they're not gonna be able to find the same color shingles.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be able to
Oh,
find
you
the same
could say
siding. As
sa-
consistent as possible.
yeah, same or similar.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
was just looking to hopefully easily reference something.
Give me 1 second, I'll look at the detached accessory code and see if that language is in there.
Seems we've done a lot of letting people build and put structures in front of their houses for some
Well,
reason.
only where they're hide bound to try to put it anywhere else, you know?
So, detached accessory structures over 200 square feet, so more than a garden shed, shall comply with, shall incorporate the finish, design, and color scheme that coordinates and is compatible with the color and design of the principal structure. Shall include a minimum of a 12-inch overhang, cornice, trim elements, shall have 2 architectural features, and then excluding storage containers. So,
That pretty well
so-
describes it. Yeah.
If we just reference that it has to have these features, that it references City Code of Architectural and Design Requirements, Section 3 of the Detached Structures Code.
we can do that, however, if they choose to go post frame and their house has got tan siding and they put up tan sheet metal that's coordinating and compatible, it's not of the same material, you know, I don't know how.
Well, the substantially the same construction method.
I
That's
would
why I
say-
use that term.
Yeah,
is
I
it's-
would
it's
say
not
if
exact,
you,
but
if you want that in
sheet
there.
metal ain't CDX.
Right, so if you want that language and if you want that to match the house, I suggest you put that in as a condition, not just rely on
Yeah, I
ordinance.
think that's what we should do. Yeah.
So we're looking at a metal structure, pretty much?
No, if you're, I mean, if somebody can come up with a better way to say it, I'm wide open to it. But just what came to my mind is substantially the same materials and design. In other words, it matches the house for all intents and purposes. Doesn't have to be, 16 on center studs.
No,
It
no,
could be
no,
a
no,
po-
no.
It could be a stick frame or,
I'm talking about what the outside of the siding
well,
is
that's
gonna
part
be.
of what I'm talking about, yeah. Because the only difference between what's your term for it?
Post frame construction.
Post-frame construction and regular stick-built is this the framing, really? You can finish them to look identical. You can make them look exactly the same. You couldn't tell from the outside unless you knew what the substrate was.
Alrighty then.
Yeah. So would you want to come up with the wording, or do you think of something better than my weak effort?
Yes,
Well,
give me a minute.
I'm sure you
let's
can
talk to our
improve
legal
upon it.
team. What's your opinion?
I like the substantially similar and substantially, that's a pretty legal term. Substantially conforms to the materials and design of the main building,
Yeah.
principal structure.
Design and materials, yeah. Well, with that kind of condition added to it, anybody want to make a motion to do something with it? Okay, I'll make a motion then. I'll make a motion that we approve the variance for 4141 226th Avenue Northeast, detached accessory structure near a front lot line, with the condition that the design and materials used, other than the post frame construction, otherwise conform to the house that's already on the property.
Architecturally.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to hear what I drafted while you
Sure.
put me under pressure, or you want me to just let her go to the wayside?
Oh, I can't wait to hear what you came up with there.
Exterior material substantially conforming in, of course I can't read my writing now, similar material to the primary structure.
Yeah, yeah, I think that captures it.
Yeah.
Well done.
Then I'll second
Anyway,
that.
so I made the motion, and
I'll
Mr.
second
Miller is seconding it. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this variance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Now, there was a little bit of a mix-up in the packet we originally got anyway. It says concept plan is number 2, and the materials are like 3rd or 4th in the packet, but you want to go to concept plan next,
I
right?
will go with whatever order you.
Oh, go ahead, it's on
Okay.
the agenda, concept plan, 34 blank blank Viking Boulevard Northeast. So they're just throwing out a concept, a really unusual property, a lot of acreage, a lot of wetlands.
All right, thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item is a concept plan proposal for a 3-lot rural subdivision or development. Because of this size and space and the choice of the applicant, they wanted to go with platting as opposed to a lot split or proposed meets and bounds split like you will see later. We're looking for informal advice to the developer and owner on any adjustments to the plan prior to the creation of preliminary and final plat. This is a concept plan, like I said, for 3 rural lot residential development. It's undeveloped land, so that's why it has the 34XX address of Viking Boulevard. This property is currently 2 vacant parcels totaling 60 acres located in the rural residential zoning district. Approximately 35 acres of the proposed lots are wetland or unbuildable, likely unbuildable land.
Wow.
With the rural residential zoning district, the minimum lot size requirement is 2 acres, with a density not to exceed 1 unit per 2.5 acres. All lots within this proposal would meet the 2-acre lot minimum. Additionally, each lot meets the 200-foot width at the right-of-way, as well as a proposed setback line. There are no internal streets proposed, and each lot would need to obtain an individual access permit from a Neonoka County Highway Department. This is a new concept plan and will be placed on the next available Parks Commission meeting. However, the standard park dedication fee for each new lot would be $2,000. Next steps will be based on feedback received. The owner can modify those plans prior to making application for preliminary and final plat. Once a preliminary plat application is received, it will be forwarded to the city and county engineer for comments and final approval. On August 27th, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, which there was no public comment. After review of the application material, the Planning Commission also had no formal feedback. City Council should review the concept plan and advise the developer on any adjustments if prior to the creation of a preliminary and final plat application.
So I'm sure everybody on the council has done their due diligence and read through the materials. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay.
Yeah, there's no need for a motion. There's no need for, if
Yeah.
there's no feedback, he can move to preliminary and final plat and you'll see it again.
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
Okay?
I guess you guys didn't either, huh? Okay. All right, well, that was information only then, I guess. So number 3, under new business, is rezoning R2 to B2, West Highway 65 from Klondike to 207th Avenue Northeast.
Really shaking up my schedule here.
Is that ZZ Top song, She Got Me Under Pressure?
It might be ZZ Top, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is.
All
Maybe
right.
not.
At the formal request of the city council, city staff have conducted all the formal requirements necessary to rezone the reference parcels from R2 to B2, which you guys have seen before. It's the west parcels between Klondike and 207th Avenue Northeast. They are currently zoned R2 residential. The request was to get them rezoned to B2 business, highway, or not highway business, but central business. At the March 11th, 2024 City Council work meeting, the City Council discussed the rezoning of the referenced parcels. The August 12th, 2024 City Council meeting, City Council gave staff formal direction to take the necessary steps to rezone the area referenced. On August 16th, 2024, public hearing notices were mailed out and published as required by state statute. On August 27th, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, which there was multiple members of the public present with questions. The questions ranged from what type of business could be approved, when will sewer and water extensions come, what does the significant natural environment designation over the properties require, why was it rezoned from B2 originally to an R2, and how long will it take the rezoning to take effect. There were concerns from the residences southwest of the proposed change properties that had some concerns over noise and light pollution in the future. None of the comments were in opposition of the rezoning, and after a review of the information material and hearing from the public and a discussion, the Planning Commission by a 4-0 vote with 1 abstention recommended approval of the rezoning.
Was it Sharon who abstained?
Sharon, yep. City Council should review, consider the Planning Commission's formal recommendation, and approve the rezoning as presented to you in ordinance number 2024-04.
How does the significant natural environmental areas thing impact this?
Yeah, I do have an overlay in the packet. You can see on the screen, there is a green hatched area overlay covering this small portion of the proposed rezoning area. This was identified by the Anoka County Soil and Water Conservation, as well as the Minnesota DNR and the Met Council, as an area that the city should look at specifically when there are development proposals to protect species, turtles, plants, other animals identified in the code, and allow for the city council to provide some flexibility with the zoning code in terms of a planned unit development in order to allow a variation to identify and help out those identified animals.
Okay,
So if they're
thank you.
talking about an ecological impact statement, is that something that we would pay for, or they would?
This parcel right here, Councilmember DeRoche, is not big enough to require an ecological impact statement. We're talking numbers of units, we're talking acreage. This parcel is probably less than 10 acres in size. The city could require the developer to provide an ecological impact, but state statute's not going to trigger that on this small of a parcel.
Is this a shadow on the property in terms of its market value because it's going to require state guidance or federal guidance regarding,
So it can still be
species
developed. As you can see, there's a small area of wetland here and a small area of wetland here that are identified in that zone. When a development proposal comes in front of the Planning Commission, comes in front of the Community Development Director, comes in front of planning, there will need to be extra attention paid to setback distances and what proposals might happen around these areas. Now, there is wetland related things here. Will probably require a wetland review by our city engineer's office as well.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things, there's a lot of second and third looks put into the city code on what can be done in that small parcel.
but it's not like spotted owl potential problems where
I don't think so.
everybody from the state capital or federal bureaucracy is there telling you how to do everything?
Yeah.
Because that
and-
encumbers the value of the property.
Yes,
Yeah,
and that
obviously.
would be triggered by our wetland specialist at Anoka County, as well as our city engineer's wetland specialist on what requirements the
Yeah,
city
I've
should
never run
require.
into this before. Have you run into this before?
Not significant natural environment.
Yeah, that's a new one on me.
Yep.
Is it something the Corps of Engineers would get involved in,
If a
being that it's wetlands?
If a wetland review is ordered, the Corps of Engineer would be involved. They are one of the three legs of the TEP panel, the Technical Evaluation Panel. So the Corps would have to weigh in on that if the wetland review was required.
Well, I gotta imagine that there would be, I mean, depending on what goes in there.
There's currently a business there right now as well as a house. So
I'm sorry?
there's currently a business and a
Oh.
house on that property right now.
And farm fields.
The farm fields to the west are not proposed for rezoning unless you decide tonight that you want to include those. We may have to step back, but what I have in
No.
purple is what's been proposed for rezoning.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
I feel-
What you have in purple is just fine.
I feel the farm field has a little bit more value for residential purposes over commercial purposes,
Yeah.
as well as it's included in the significant natural environment, which will give us more leverage when it comes time to plan and approve a zoning or a development of some sorts in that defined area.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2024-04?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2024-04, approving the rezoning.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Real good description, Aaron. Thank you. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. And then we get down to the meets and bounds, lot split on Baton Street. This ought to be educational.
Let me get back to it here. And that is the previous one. Here it is. I really need to figure out a way to get all these maps to look the same size. All right. On July 24th, 2024, Nicole Schreck submitted an application for a meets and bounds split of a 20-acre parcel located at 22645 Baton Street Northeast into 3 parcels. The first parcel will contain the original family home and will be divided off as a 7.88 acre lot. The remaining 12.50 acres will be subdivided into a 6.06 acre lot and a 6.42 acre lot. The property proposed for a division is zoned rural residential. And per city code 42, the minimum lot size for any division in the rural residential zone is 2 acres, with a minimum lot width at the public right-of-way of 200 feet and has to include 23,000 square feet of buildable area. To be eligible for a meets and bounds split division, as outlined in Appendix A, Section 12.2, the following conditions must be met. The parcel must be a minimum of 5 acres. The parcel must have a minimum of 300-foot road frontage. The parcel must contain 23,000 square feet of buildable area. The appropriate road, public utility, and drainage easements as outlined in city code must be dedicated. And park and trail dedication fees as adopted by the city council must be paid at the time of certification. Although this proposed split meets 4 out of the 5 conditions, it exceeds the minimum lot requirements for the rural residential zoning district. On August 27th, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public hearing which there was no public comment. After a review of the material and the application, the Planning Commission by a 5-0 vote recommended approval of the meets and bounds parcel split. City Council should review the request, consider the Planning Commission's formal recommendation, and approve as presented Resolution 2024-63.
Any questions, conversation, concerns? reservations? Anything? Seems pretty straightforward to me. We have a motion to approve Resolution 2024-63.
I'll second.
Okay, you're making the motion.
I'll move to go ahead with the meets and bounds.
Okay, so Mr. DeRoche is motioning to approve Resolution 2024-63.
I'll second it.
And Mr. Miller seconds it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks for putting up with me.
Huh?
I said, thanks for putting up with me.
It's always our pleasure. Okay, that completes new business. Any department reports?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'll just give a few updates here. I just want to give a shout out to Public Works crew, Nate, and also the fire department for the unusual storm events that we had and the trees that were down on the roadways and that. And I know there's still cleanup that's happening right now, whether it's being put in parks or where it's located right now. We're trying to still process through some of that.
Excuse me, Matt, can I ask a follow-up question? Did you guys have your meeting and discuss what options there would be for, if not this event, then future storm events of having a staging area at Booster Park or wherever?
Yeah,
where
Mr.
people-
Mayor.
Where residents can take stuff.
Yeah, we did discuss this, and I called around to different cities to see what they were doing as well.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them, unless you're kind of a densely populated city of Anoka type of thing, where
Yeah.
the city then go around and pick up brush. There were some drop-off spots in other cities that just, you know, they took it as if it's in the street or right away, the city is responsible and will remove that. But aside from that, it's the, you know, homeowner's responsibility.
It's hard to make it work again, the logistics work with a city this size.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge that we have with the drop-off spot is that it becomes more than just a storm damage drop-off. I don't want to say a dumping area, but sometimes that's the case, and so there's those challenges that go with that. So again, we're trying to strike a balance. I know the city of Andover has over $150,000 into this cleanup already.
Yeah.
So it can be a very costly proposition for cities, and it can be costly for residents too, depending on how much damage occurred and that sort of thing. I know that a lot of neighbors have been helping neighbors, and that's community coming together, which is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
well, I just had to ask since we talked about it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got quite a few calls on that,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what are we gonna do with it?
Right.
And why doesn't East Bethel have a compost site?
Because Lina Lakes and Andover have compost sites. I mean, that's.
Well, there's a gentleman who would love to put a compost site
Coon
in
Rapids,
East Bethel. And we've
Yeah.
been talking with him.
Right
And,
down the street, I seem to recall, yeah.
and nothing's come of that. He owns a corner of 221st and 65 there,
Oh, yeah. I know
the
what you're talking
northwest
about.
corner. Good guy.
Yeah.
Actually, good guy. He owns the compost site that the county contracts with next to the sheriff's building. OTI,
off of
I believe,
Hanson.
is the name of it.
Yep.
They do a great job over there, and they're looking to kind of expand that operation, and still in conversation with the city as to what options might exist in areas that
Yeah.
might exist.
It almost sounds like a CST kind of deal. I don't know
Which,
if you-
understanding some of that sensitivity, we want to tread carefully on this conversation.
Yeah,
So,
that was quite the topic for a long time.
Yeah.
yeah. So that being said, I just want to give a shout out to the Public Works crew and the fire departments for their
Yeah, they did a great
for their
job.
endless hours of work and trying to get things back online. I also want to, as part of the Friday update, just remind everyone that there's an invitation for the Cedar Creek Ecosystem Scientific Reserve on August 8th at 6 p.m. This is the Parks Committee meeting.
August 8th?
October, I'm sorry,
Oh.
October 8th
Okay.
at 6:30 p.m. And this is the Parks meeting, and council and mayor, you're invited to attend
going.
this.
I'm
And kind of see what they're doing. I figured
It's a cool place, it really is.
Councilmember Miller would be there, he loves it. And I think it's it's definitely a gem that's in the
It is.
community here, so.
We gotta post if there would be more than three.
If 3 of you
Yes.
intend on
Yes.
attending, you'd
If-
want to post that.
Yeah.
If you want to let us know, if you plan on being there, we can certainly
I
post
just,
that.
I
That's not a
just did.
problem.
He just did too, yeah.
Okay,
I plan on it unless something
okay,
comes
I'll
up.
post it. We'll have Carrie post that one.
Yeah.
Well,
You
on
know-
the Parks Committee.
No, that was Tim Miller who wrote the article for the East Bethel Bulletin, letting people know about the Cedar Creek ecosystem. It's really something very special.
And I just want to give an update on the Sand Hill Creek Parkway.
Bird bath?
I'm sorry?
Was that the term that was used, Bird Bath Road?
The bird bath.
Oh, yeah, the bird
The bird bath, yeah. Unfortunately, when the sewer was put in there, there was a sag in that line. And we're working through that. I reached out to Perkins Contracting, they're actually located out of Nowthen. And kind of chatted with them a little bit about what's worst case, what are we talking about here? And they seem to think that there's other options to mitigate some of that, such as putting a manhole near it, jetting it annually if need be. And so we're trying to get our arms around what's the liability if there's backup and that sort of thing. So there was what should have been included in the developer's agreement. There were 2 stubs, one which had the sag, one which didn't. What should have been included in the developer's agreement was if you go with the sag connection, you need to fix that versus going with the other one. And unfortunately, the plans are set up to go and connect with the sag one, and that wasn't included in the developer's agreement. So we're somewhat trying to process through that with limiting, or mitigating, I should say, what cost may occur in fixing this issue. There were dollars held back.
How long a stretch are we talking about that's affected?
20 feet, I'm believing.
Does it go under 65?
No. From the center of Sand Hill Parkway
Yeah.
to the east,
Oh, so
at the
you
driveway
would have to
of,
room,
yeah,
you would have to
half
remove
of the lane, you'd
asphalt.
lose the northbound lane.
So you would have to patch that.
And there's no way to go after the contractor that put that in, huh?
No, they withheld dollars, $60,000 at the time, and
I
because
thought
there
so.
was
I
a
thought it
belief
only
that
20,000.
it was 60,000.
It was 60,
Yeah.
okay.
And there was a belief that,
That's a
you
little
know, if
better
they could
anyway.
work with the other connection, then, you know, the problem somewhat goes away at that point.
Right.
But unfortunately, the way the project laid out, it was more efficient and less costly to connect to this one, which now creates the problem. that
Should have
we're
been on
looking
a punch list.
at. Yeah, anyways.
Yeah.
We'll keep everyone up to date on that and try and figure out the best, most reasonable solution to the challenge that we're facing, so. But aside from that, unless there are questions, I think that concludes my report.
Any council reports?
I moved to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, can I get on the next work meeting that we should talk more about storm recovery and so forth?
Okay.
Maybe come up with a 2-day plan for people to drop off stuff from their yard, just something. I think we should go over it a little bit better and learn something from this one. We're learning that our departments are really good. Fire department's been great, but we still have residents out there who need some help yet, and maybe we can come up with some ideas for them.
I have one, I'll save it for the meeting.
Perfect.
Well, I know the trailer parks had a couple trees laying down on the trailers. Cedarwood was one, and
Speaking of that, where are we at with that?
With,
Cedarwood,
With the whole, they request, last thing I knew, they requested a public data request of our records and all that. Has there been no motion? Is that it? No,
I know that Carrie is finalizing that. We requested, they sent
Oh, okay.
They sent us a thumb drive to avoid any sort of printing cost. I received the thumb drive today or yesterday, I forget which day it was.
Okay. well, that's
So
the
we are
answer.
gonna mail that back to them and meet
Okay.
that request.
Anybody have anything else? Otherwise, we'll honor Mr. DeRoche's motion to adjourn.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard.